Yeah. So, so you're gonna have to excuse me because I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I've actually never done a talk like this, but what I've found through 14 years of being in the financial services industry and serving as managing partner here at Mass Mutual in Chicago, which I'm very proud of, is that financial people don't seem that interesting most of the time. And we kind of get the feedback that we're kind of nerds with calculators and who wear navy and gray suits, white shirts, symmetrical ties, and we constantly look like we're just running for public office. So I'm trying to give a talk today that's going to be a little bit different than that. And so I chose something that's really near and dear to my heart. And before I get into that, I want to do what I typically always do when I have the opportunity to speak to a group, is I want to just acknowledge that, you know, when I woke up this morning, I felt the same pride that I typically feel every morning that I wake up, because I got to wake up in the most amazing country in the entire world. And I don't think, please, there's so much chaos and friction that we see in TV and that we read about every single day of our lives. And with access to social media, and half of you will probably be on your phones the most of this time, looking at some of that friction and chaos. I just think it's really important to take a second out of your day, each and every single day, and say thank you. Thank you to military families. Thank you to first responders. Thank you to the people who give us the freedom to wake up, kiss my beautiful wife, send my 2 beautiful children off to school, call my parents on the way into work to say, hey, thanks, and then have an amazing day and hopefully kick some ass. So this is the most amazing place in the entire world, and I'm just super proud to live in the United States of America, and I think we probably all are. I want to also give a quick shout out to the teams that put this on. You know, it was a year ago, almost today, that 2 of my very dear friends, Dominic Vellini and Gino Mattiota, who run Wolf Point Advisors, one of the most amazing companies in Chicago. They're blowing up. If you don't know who they are, you need to know who they are. But they're the ones who introduced me to RJ Pahura and his team here. And so it's because of them and the teams like Venture Connects and Fund Conference and Brandless that we get to experience what we've experienced for the last 2.5 days. So I want to say thank you to all 3 groups. So a lot of the people have been asking me, what does hashtag Don't Be a Punk mean, right? I had these shirts made by my good friend John, my new good friend John, and these shirts are kind of funny. You know, growing up as the third of 4 boys, 30 plus years ago, we grew up on the mean streets of Hammond, Indiana, Torrance Avenue to be exact. Who knows where Hammond is? Horseshoe Casino? Yes, that's it. So my brothers and I grew up on Torrance Avenue. And Torrance Avenue was that street, that iconic street in that little city called Hammond where all the tough kids lived. The likes of Tyrone Hawkins, the Solis brothers, the Hurley sisters, and the Amezcua clan. And it's on those streets that I learned so much about life by my brother constantly reminding me not to be a punk in life, to be a good person, to do the right thing, to be thoughtful, to care for others. And it's on those streets that I started learning that I didn't want to grow up to be a punk. And growing up to be a punk wasn't necessarily about doing things onto others, but it was about how I was disrespecting myself and how I was disrespecting my name and how I was disrespecting the family that I came from. And so this funny kind of talk of don't be a punk, it's really going to be a couple stories that I want to share with you that take me down memory lane, take my brother Alex down memory lane, and how those convert into 5 really, really powerful business lessons that I think have served in a major way in helping me be a good steward of the Mass Mutual Chicago ship, and a good steward of our profession, and a good steward on behalf of the work that we do on behalf of our clients. So 30 years ago, we grew up to 2 immigrant parents from Mexico, Papi Beto and Mami Mina. And it was in those early days in my life that I really learned the first lesson. And what we learned was through the experiences of really volatile financial realities that our family went through. There were a lot of peaks and valleys financially. The few peaks were the one Wisconsin Dells vacation that we took as kids and as a family. The fact that I got to wear Air Jordans when I was in 8th grade. But they're mostly valleys. And for those of us who are older, I'm 38, you remember XJ900s. Do you? You don't. You guys are really young. But XJ900s were an amazing brand that Payless rocked. And when you couldn't go to Foot Locker, you went to Payless. And I wore those. And we ate bean tacos. And we ate cheese sandwiches with ketchup on them. And there were a lot of valleys like those. But it was on that porch, that little porch, on that blue Cape Cod house that we grew up in for over 30 years at 4340 Torrance, that every summer, my mother in one white plastic chair, my father in the other white plastic chair, and my brothers and I just roaming the little front yard that we had, my father would share his stories of obstacles and painful moments throughout his life, being an entrepreneur in Mexico, knowing that long-term Mexico was not the place that would create the life he'd want for his family, and his struggle to come to this country and do something better for us so that we could have the life that we have today. And it was in those stories and in those moments in my life that I learned my first powerful business lesson. And that was to be driven to a point of insane resiliency about what I wanted for myself. And so I overcame being the chubby kid in school. I overcame not being the smartest of the four boys. I overcame making a lot of stupid decisions because of this first very, very powerful lesson from my father, which was to be driven to an insane point of resiliency where nothing would deter me from what I wanted to accomplish. And so I share that humbly with you because this room has been full of people who want to connect money with great ideas. And it's so easy to lose our connection with our purpose, which actually drives the vision we have for our life. And so if I can share the first is to be driven. The second story I wanted to share with you was a story of when my father, he would take the boys, we all ran cross country, believe it or not, and you look at my brother Alex and I, people are like, you're full of shit, you do not run cross country. But we did, okay? It was inexpensive to run cross country, there weren't a lot of fees, and no one got cut from the team. So we ran cross country. And my father on the weekends would drive us to this park just outside of Hammond, Indiana, and he would drop us off at the front, and then he would drive all the way to the back of the park, and he'd say, I want you guys to race each other. And then we'd all race. And again, if you look at my brother Alex and I, you would easily see that it was painful. It was extremely painful to run. But we did, and we were competitive. And it was in those tiny moments that as a young boy, I realized that I have to become competitive at everything, even the things that aren't of the most importance to me. It was critically important to value being competitive. And so as I look around at the business world today, and all of you probably know at least one financial advisor, you know that most often the most successful ones are relentless to make you a client. Relentless to make you a client. And that's why our career and the career I've chosen has been great for somebody who's driven, who's resilient, who's competitive. And so that's the second most powerful lesson that I learned from my parents. The third is about not being a loser. So I had phrased this a little bit differently. My beautiful wife gave me feedback. She's like, you sound stuffy. It's not going to play well that way. So we changed it to don't be a loser. And this story takes me to my transition from high school to college. See, again, I was so blessed. We were born in a family that valued education. We saw education and intellectual empowerment as the way out of Hammond, as the way to create a better quality of life for ourselves. And so it was in that transition from high school to college that I saw my older brother graduate valedictorian, get a full academic ride to DePaul in southern Indiana, go on to be president of the student body at Northwestern Law. And it was in that transition in my life that I saw my younger brother, Will, graduate at the top of his class, get a full academic ride to DePaul University, go on to Kellogg and become one of the top kids coming out of the Kellogg program with his MBA. And it was in that transition that I finished second in my class as salutatorian. I went off to college and I applied more value to my social audience in playing college football than I did to my academics. And after a really, really, really painful year, my sophomore year, I realized that I had become exactly what my brother always said to not become, a loser. I was lying to myself. I was creating excuses. I was telling everybody else why it was the school, why even though I got to DePauw and I got an academic full ride, it was the school that was doing something to me, and that's why I wasn't excelling. And it was in that moment that I finally woke up and realized, wow, I'd become exactly what they always said to not become. Don't be a punk. Don't complain. Don't whine. We all have problems. We all have our own problems. And it was in that moment that I got connected with the lesson that, yes, I have to play to win. I have to play to win at everything, every single thing in my life. And every time we meet somebody else throughout this really crazy, chaotic, busy life, where we think we don't have enough time to talk to all the right people that we want to talk to at conferences like this, and where you'll go off next tonight and tomorrow, we have to remember that every human being we come across has their own story, right? Every single human being we come across, whether they're having a great day or not, they have their own story. And it's in these moments of having a positive outlook and being good to others and making time for others that we actually win. So we actually win if we just make time for all of the amazing people around us in our life, if we just make time for that. So the third powerful lesson I learned through that was just don't be a loser, play to win, make time for human beings. That's where the power in this life is. It's in relationships. The fourth lesson, I was talking to my good friend Sam Rodriguez about this yesterday. Sam is the epitome of a guy who runs around this world asking for every single thing he wants at all times, no matter what it costs. And he's smart for that. And in that lesson, I learned it between my 7th and 8th grade transition. You see, in 7th grade, I decided I was going to become a basketball player. So I went out for the team. Again, at Clark Middle School, I was fortunate. They didn't cut anybody. So they let me on the team. And it was on this glorious day that my dad says, I'm proud of you. I'm excited. I'm going to take you to the store. We're going to go get your shoes. It's going to be awesome. You know, I lived growing up watching MTV, rap videos, Money magazines, ESPN. So what shoes do you think a 7th grader wants? Jordans. That's right, Jordans. I was dead set on getting Jordans. Dead set on getting Jordans. 30 minutes later, I walked out with LA Gears. It was painful. It was painful. It was the worst basketball season of my entire life, even as mediocre of an athlete as I was. The LA Gears held me down. And it was that year that I learned the very painful lesson, which is lesson number 4, which is ask for what you want. So that year, I ran my paper route. I hustled. I had 4 blocks. I was the quickest kid in Hammond, Indiana that ran paper routes. Like, no joke. I folded the fastest, bagged the fastest, delivered the fastest, collected my tips the fastest. It was insane. So that next year, my dad says it's time to go to the store. This time I went to the store with $50 of my own. And so what I walk out with? Jordans. And it's because I committed to what I wanted. I got confident about the fact that I felt I had deserved it and I had earned it because I saved the money myself. And so I just asked for it. And I got it. And so I often think, like when I'm feeling sorry for myself and I don't get the things I want, if I'm really honest with myself, why am I not getting what I want? It's because I'm not asking. And sometimes I find, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I find that my lack of asking is lack of confidence in my preparation for the moment. My lack of asking is lack of confidence for my preparation in the moment. And so I think of Jordan, who I listened to this morning, did the first pitch. And it's funny, you just walked in, because I was going to use you as an example. And I think of how great he presented this morning. People Vine. If you don't know Jordan, you have to know Jordan. Right? And I'm like, I just thought, like, Jordan gets what he wants because he's prepared. We talked about this last night as I left. You don't need luck, you need practice. Right? Allen Iverson. Everybody misunderstood what he was saying. Ask for what you want. And the last lesson that I wanted to share with you was something I learned a really, really hard way. When I graduated from DePaul, I was very fortunate that I had three very, very good friends that I played college football with, and we all decided that we wanted to go start a company, a .com. It was the .com boom. It was 2000. We met a billionaire board of trustee from DePaul. He says, guys, I have the greatest idea. You guys are coming with me. You're going to make a ton of money. We all signed on for $40,000 a year and 500 shares of this mystery stock. The company was called Big Fat Wow Media Networks. What we did was we went across the country selling shopping centers on the idea that they wanted us to install and put together this high-speed T1 internet access center in shopping centers where people could come in and check Hotmail. What's Hotmail? They'd watch videos, commercials, movie trailers. It was awesome. I lived in airports for 2 years of my life. 21 months later, guess where I was sleeping? The basement of 4340 Torrance Avenue in Hammond, Indiana. The market fell out. Don wrote me a check for $2,000 and said, good luck getting home, kid. It was a good run. And it was in that moment that I was blessed to meet a man who took me to the side and said, look, you're not humble enough to become a priest. You're not smart enough to become a physician. But you're a good kid with a ton of work ethic and resiliency. You love people. You love your family. You call your mom virtually every single day of your life. You care for others like that. You're charitable and you don't even have money. You need to become a financial advisor. He says, just learn to work a calculator, put a navy or gray suit on, white shirt, symmetrical tie, look like you're running for office every single day, and do what you say you will do, and people will work with you. And so that's what I did. I got lucky. And the biggest lesson that Joe taught me in this business was that it was going to be the hardest thing I ever did in my life. So what he said to me was one really, really, really important thing. Burn the boat you float in on. Never, ever, ever give yourself an opportunity to create an excuse for why you couldn't seize this moment and create what a long time ago your parents allowed you to dream about, sitting on that little crappy porch at 4340 Torrance in Hammond, Indiana. Burn the boat and you will succeed. You will create the greatest quality of life that you're humanly capable of if you just do that. And so I did. And so 14 years later, probably 20,000 cold calls, about 6,000 clients in Chicago, individuals and institutions. I'm competitive. I ask for what I want. I try to be as resilient as I can, although I'm relatively insecure. My wife will tell you that. But I work hard. And I do the very best I can to be mindful of those 5 really powerful lessons that I learned as a child, the third of 4 boys to 2 immigrants. That's powerful. That's our story. And I wish you all the best this year and beyond. Thank you.